teach you everything you need to know about winning your fantasy football league, daily fantasy sports contests, and sports betting on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.
And I'll tell you, Dave, nothing but legends here all the way around. You just hear the Beastie Boys. Listen, released the third album, Check Your Head, 4/21/1992. I was in 8th grade, showing my age. Legendary group. And then I just heard you on What's Happening, talk about some legendary personalities in the world of professional wrestling with Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer and Mark Henry. And now we just go up another notch. So we go up to another legendary status. Because on the line right now with us to talk all things NBA and probably even maybe getting a little NFL talk. Who knows? You never know where the discussion is going to go with Kelsey Nicole Nelson. You can follow her at The Real K Nelson on Twitter. Award-winning journalist, DC Sports Media Person of the Year, Fox Sports, listening with KNN. I don't even have enough room for the ultimate introduction, but just do me a favor. Go follow. You will not be disappointed. Kelsey, it's Sunday morning. I extremely appreciate you joining us here.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy Sunday. Always a pleasure. And yes, a long night of sports, but a good night of sports. So really honored to be here talking with you.
Well, I do. I full transparency. I did promise Kelsey. I said, listen, I promise you, it's the second time she joined us early on a Sunday. I promise you I'll get you on a Friday night show next time. I 100% promise. It's not easy.
I appreciate you, Tony.
Yeah, no problem. I see. I threw it out there on the air, Kelsey, so everybody knows I'm held to it. You know what I mean? But listen, full transparency. I will say before we get into questions, I've been in this industry a long time, still making my way into it. And when you find a personality and a person that's actually a human being that gives you the time of day, it's fantastic. So, Kelsey, I had to say that you're the real one. That's why it's The Real K Nelson. So let's get right. No problem.
Kind word.
You know what? Well, here's the thing, Kelsey. You know this as well as I do. You meet some interesting individuals and personalities within this industry. Some good, some bad. It's just a part of the business, right?
It comes with the territory. But no, when you meet good people, you stay connected to them. And Tony, I'm glad since we first met on social media because we haven't had a chance to meet in person yet. I'm just glad we've stayed connected. So proud of the job that you do, that you continue to do. But I hope everyone listening knows how lucky they are to have a star in you. So thanks again so much.
Well, just remember that when you make it even bigger so I can still get you back on the show. I'm just going to say that.
Always. I'm never leaving. Always. You got me.
I love it. I love it. See, I got on the air. The word is there. NBA, it's what an exciting time, Kelly. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time.
Yeah.
I want to have some fun here. Who's going to win? I just want your overall take of what you've witnessed so far in the NBA playoffs.
My gosh, I feel like this NBA playoffs, it's been fun, right? We've had record-setting numbers in the Kings-Warriors series, and, look at what that's turned out to be. Draymond, not getting ejected, getting suspended from a game. The Kings being relevant this year, honestly, too. It's just been so much fun. We got a chance to see the beam lit. And then I think, even yesterday, I think so many people, Tony, had the Suns running away with it coming out the West. But we see that, they've had some not so convincing wins against a, beat up and boggled, Clippers team. So all that to say, I think it's been really fun to watch. But I think there's so many good storylines, right? Like Dylan Brooks is trying to become this bad boy of the NBA, LeBron being, Papa time or Father time, teaching him a lesson. Like, this is exactly why you don't poke the bear. John Morant coming back from this hand injury that we just didn't know. Now we have the Joel Embiid storyline, Tony. When will he be able to make his return? Because we know that 616 needs him. And then also, I think, in my neck of the woods in the DMV, we are all praying for Victor Oladipo. Hate to see, specifically we've seen so many injuries, in these playoffs, but, Victor Oladipo is someone who's worked his way back to come back to the court. We know the star that he can be. And so just to see that injury last night, I think hurt so many folks and so many prayers, going out to him. But I think, the Miami Heat, by the way, probably being one of the bigger surprise stories, Tony, right, of this playoff. And I know obviously this Bucks team is much different without Giannis Antetokounmpo, but, Jimmy buckets, we're seeing playoff Jimmy, and it's been so much fun to watch. And anytime your bench can give you 59 points off the bench, I mean, and this is what I always talk about in the NBA, the depth. And so I think really now we're seeing the depth that teams have and, who is going to step up to the moment. So I've enjoyed it, Tony. I've enjoyed every single moment of the NBA playoffs thus far.
Hey, Kelsey, Dave Gloeckner here again from Sirius Radio. So glad to have you on bright and early here on the East Coast. But, hey, a lot of good things happened last night in the NBA, and you hit on so many good points. I stayed up late for that Lakers game as well. And I now in my head, I'm saying, let's re-rank the Western Conference. Denver has impressed. We're not talking about them much, but they've done what they needed to do. Who would you say is, firmly like maybe the favorite to come out of the West now?
Yeah, I think this is what's so interesting is I've been having this conversation with colleagues, and we're, a lot of people are saying, a lot of NBA heads are saying, at first, again, we thought the West would be the more competitive, division going into the NBA Finals. But I think all of a sudden now we're looking at the East and saying, you know what, maybe we were wrong because we haven't seen that much convincing. And like I said, I think so many people, were behind the Suns. Kevin Durant, let's just be honest, Kevin Durant going to Phoenix, that was supposed to be the whole goal, right? This was supposed to be their year. And yes, I know Devin Booker is playing, just Devin Booker basketball. I mean, and we know how well he can play. I think, last night was a good glimpse of what him and Kevin Durant, can be, but they're going to need that consistency. Chris Paul was another question mark, right? That we had, how much will he be able to contribute? So I think all in all that to say, this is why I always worry about the Warriors team. I'm going to tell you guys why, because you can never fully count them out and down, especially when you got a guy like Steph Curry. And I think the great thing about the Warriors, I think they take things personally, and then they have shooters. And when they hit, they can hit. And, this is a team that other guys can step up as well to the plate, which has been fun. Obviously getting Andrew Wiggins back was huge. I guess that's one of the other big storylines of the playoffs. And, his impact. And anytime you have a guy, like Looney, you can also, make a difference on the rebounding boards on both sides, right? On the offensive rebounds and the defensive rebounds. I'm just going to say this, and I said this before, never count the Golden State Warriors out. Reigning champs, and they seem to make something out of nothing every single time. I think the biggest thing, though, in the West is going to really be the health aspect, and that's really on both sides. But I'm just going to say, don't be surprised for the Warriors to come back. They've been down and out before, and as much as I love the Sacramento Kings team, they've been fun to watch. I still think this moment might just be a bit too big. They got off to a hot start. I am worried still about the Warriors on the road, but again, they have the experience there. They have the expertise there. I think they had added energy because they feel the type of way against the league and the officials for the Draymond suspension. So I'm just saying, watch out for the Warriors, folks.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, they aren't, obviously showed that they can win even without Draymond the other night, and they're back in that series. So let's flip the script. You said the East is now, kind of almost a little bit more competitive than we predicted going into these playoffs. The Knicks looking real well. And now if the Heat pull this massive upset off, it just shakes everything up. With that said, who do you think, in the East right now would be your proverbial favorite?
Yeah, so I think the East, again, the favorites, in the West were the Suns. The favorite in the East were supposed to be the Bucks. But this Bucks team, I think we're all, again, just watching this Giannis Antetokounmpo timeline. Again, a much different team without him. They obviously need him. Like you said, I think the Knicks, and, I'm on the East Coast. I have to hear Knicks fans all the time tell me, Kelsey, it's our year. It's our year. And I'm like, hold up, slow down. But the Knicks, I think there is something young and promising in them, and I'm not going to count it off. I think, the Knicks are a team that, though, is very reliant on their young stars, right? They need their young stars to consistently show up. You can't put so much just on the back, of Jalen Brunson, who's been great, and obviously Julius Randle. Quentin Grimes is going to have to continue to step up, Emmanuel Quigley, RJ Barrett. So I'm not just so high on the Knicks yet. And in Miami Heat, Miami fans, again, I think they have reason to be happy. But I think, watch out for Boston. I mean, the Boston Celtics are a team. I think they're not getting, a lot of the conversation and a lot of the talk. But I think, they're a team that, you just can't count them out. And I know folks are going to say, Kelsey, come on, they're playing the Atlanta Hawks. But still, I think this Boston Celtics team, when healthy, I think they have the depth, they have the experience, and I feel like they know they have unfinished business from last season. So I think for me, watch out for the Boston Celtics coming out of the East. But I think the East, again, is going to be so much more competitive as we get closer and closer to the NBA Finals.
And again, we're joined by the excellent Kelsey Nicole Nelson. You can follow her at The Real K Nelson on Twitter. Does all things, all sports. We're talking NBA, but make no mistake about it. Kelsey starts some MLB talk right here on MLB Pro. I seen some, or MLB Bro. I'm sorry, MLBBro.com. I seen some videos of Kelsey coming out breaking down some games. Kelsey, you're getting into that Major League Baseball realm too. I see it.
They're keeping me busy, though. They're keeping me busy. I think this is why I love this time of year, right? We have baseball, we have basketball, obviously, too. Boxing, we had the biggest fight of the year last night. And once again, in my neck of the woods, everyone's excited for Baltimore's own Gervonta Tank Davis getting that win. So for me, I'm just a kid in a candy store. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. It keeps me busy. It means I'm not sleeping, but I'm used to that. It's okay.
Yeah,
but again, this is why we play the game.
Yes, and we don't sleep. Like I tell my kids all the time, I'll sleep when I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like that's
there
it.
We go.
At the end of the day, right?
When we're 7 feet under, we'll get all the sleep we need.
Yeah, hopefully no time soon, but yeah, one day,
yes,
right? One
please.
day. Let me ask you this about a couple guys here. It's just in the NBA realm. There's two people. You know, number one, we mentioned the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant. What is Durant's legacy if the Suns win? Because he's always going to be, in my mind, continue to be that guy who went somewhere else to win. And then on the flip side, the younger guy in Zion Williamson, the concerns about his mental capacity for the game. Is he headed down the bust road or will he be able to get his head together to be able to play this game?
Yeah, well, Kevin Durant, another guy from my area, so many people want to see him win. But unfortunately, I think for Kevin Durant, this was a team that he has to win with because we all saw the debacle that happened, with the Brooklyn Nets. And I think that was actually a chance for him to have, his own team. But we saw kind of how quickly and how messy that whole situation was. But I think for him, anytime you have some of the best guys in basketball on the court, in which we have in Phoenix, and I think it's championship or bust this year. That was the whole point of him going there. We want Chris Paul, right, to get a ring, so being able to help him out. But I think for Kevin Durant, honestly, I don't know if this will change his legacy much because, as you said, I think some of the people see him, having to go to these teams that are already pretty much, established to get a ring. I think so many people want Kevin Durant just to be able, to do this on his own. But again, this is an NBA where, to win, you kind of do need that super team, right? I mean, you need those guys that can consistently step up, and score. I would personally love his legacy to end here in Washington, Tony, with the Wizards and helping the Wizards to become relevant again, get them back in the postseason and get the Wizards a win so we don't have to go back, to the Bullets days, the good Bullets days, when we had great basketball here in Washington. But I think for Kevin Durant, if he gets a ring, it's going to be great. We're gonna be listening to the post-conference and then shouting out once again Mama Durant for all that she did for him. But I still think he's going to have something to prove to fans, though I feel like for Kevin Durant himself, I don't think he necessarily feels that way. But people are going to always question, his legacy when he hasn't been able, to fully do it on his own, especially because we saw what the Warriors were able to do last year, right, without him and getting a championship. And honestly, potentially this year, for the Warriors as they go on a quest, for Steph Curry to get that 5th ring. So I think Kevin Durant's legacy is always going to be up in the air. It's always going to depend on who you ask. They're going to have an opinion about it. But all in all, he's going to be a champion at the end of the day. Obviously, a Hall of Famer and one of the greatest to ever play the game, change the game. And, so many young players looking up to him. But, I would love, again, for Kevin Durant to come home and get a ring from the hometown team that desperately needs it, Tony, because Wizards fans, they're in mourning right now. And they're just hoping the NBA draft is good for them.
Kelsey, I'd be remiss if I didn't just touch something that's so close to us, 4 days away from the NFL draft. Last time we had you on, talked about L. Jack, and he's still out there without a home. And now GM Eric Acosta is saying, hey, I could take a quarterback in the first round. Now, sitting at 22, probably not very realistic, but just want to get your take on what the Baltimore quarterback situation is going to be when we start the 2023 season.
Yeah, this is probably the most popular topic right now in Baltimore. Yeah. Who's going to be the guy behind center? And there's so much love for number 8 in Baltimore. And I think many folks feel like Lamar Jackson is going to have to come back just because the market's not there. The market isn't out there for him. But, obviously the Ravens are going to have to repair that relationship. I think Eric DeCosta, the general manager, I think he's poking the bait. I think he's just trying to put that out there and make people scratch their heads and wonder. But Baltimore knows who they want at quarterback, and they know the guy they need at quarterback. There's a reason why, Odell Beckham, yes, the money was good, but better believe Odell wasn't coming just to not know who was going to play quarterback. I mean, because this was a proven year for Odell Beckham, as well. I think, a lot of guys, if you ask a lot of the guys in the NFL, a lot of guys praise Lamar Jackson. They want to play with Lamar Jackson. I think that's the value he brings to this Ravens team. He makes people actually want to come to Baltimore, which in NFL market size terms, Baltimore is not the biggest market. But when you add Lamar Jackson to it, it makes it that much more attractive. So I think Lamar will be back in Baltimore. It's going to be on the Ravens to make the situation right with him. because he is valuable. He has seen Jalen Hurts now, get paid. And Lamar Jackson is obviously a huge talent. But, it sucks when you have to just fight for the money that you feel like not only that you want, but that you deserve. And so I think Baltimore is going to have to just do everything it can to roll out the red carpet to make Lamar Jackson feel back at home. Now, if Baltimore did get a quarterback in the draft, later in the draft, believe me, it would be a guy that they're going to look to develop. But Baltimore is not going to throw a rookie on the field because Baltimore wants to get back to that championship level. They want to get back to 2012. The Super Bowl reign that the Ravens had has been quite a while now. And folks are hungry for that in Baltimore. So expect them. They're investing a lot in the offense because the offense last year, quite frankly, without Lamar Jackson, they struggled. And so they're trying to do all they can to make it that much more attractive for Lamar to come back home.
Kelsey, I have a few fun questions for you, but I need to ask you, can you stick on? Can we go to a break and come back with you for those fun questions? Okay, great. We're going to go to break right now. We're going to come back. I'm going to put Kelsey on the spot with a couple fun NBA questions. So keep it locked right here on the Win Daily Show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Learn the mindset for DFS victory and win big with Win Daily on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.
And we are back right here on the Win Daily Show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. It's Tony Cutillo, it's Dave Gloeckner, and we're joined again from the illustrious Kelsey Nicole Nelson. You can follow her at The Real K Nelson on Twitter, award-winning journalist, DC Sports Media Person of the Year, Fox Sports Listen In with KNN, which is a fantastic show. Make sure you check it out, and doing some MLB things for MLBbro.com. And we had to get her back for another segment because she was so great in the first one, and there's so much more I want to pick her brain about. Kelsey, we had I know this question will be right up your alley, and this is why I wanted to ask you. So on Friday night show, which I promise I'll get you on next time, was looking at the Big Three concept. I love the Ice Cube Big Three concept, and I like to have some fun. And I'm like, I asked the audience, right, if you could build a three-man lineup from the current NBA playoff structure right now, from the teams that are in it, who would you ride in the Blacktop tournament? Now, I'll give you the choices I gave, but also if you have a different one, let me know. The choices were Anthony Edwards, Jokic, and Tatum were a team. KD, Fox, and Kat were a team. Steph, Jimmy Buckets, and Giannis were a team. And LeBron, Ja, and Embiid were a team. And just so you know, the vote went 60% Steph, Butler, Giannis, and then second was LeBron, Ja, and Embiid. So I'm curious what you think on this, because it's fun because we have so much talent in the NBA.
There's so much talent, but the two you just gave me, you got injured players on both of those, Tony. So I don't want
no injuries. They're all good. They're all good.
No
we're
injuries.
In a dream world right now. Everybody's good.
Okay, good. So we're in this perfect reality world. Okay, so that makes me feel better. Anytime you have Steph Curry, you got a guy that can throw up buckets. Right? I think any team with Steph that Steph is on, I think I'm taking. Tony, I watch him, and the man, he can just throw up anything. And it just seems like, it goes in. And the confidence factor, is there. And Steph still so much basketball left in him. And then, Tony, remind me who else was on that team?
So that team was Steph, Jimmy Buckets, and Giannis was the leading vote getter for this.
All scorers. Jimmy Buckets, we see what he's been able to do in the playoffs thus far, for the Heat. And then Giannis Antetokounmpo. I get offense and defense. I'm a happy girl. I'm a happy girl on both sides of the basketball. So I feel like that would be anybody's dream lineup, that you would make. And Tony, really quickly, because I got my family from New Orleans listening. I'm like, Kelsey, you didn't touch on Zion Williamson. And I know you asked me about that earlier.
Yes.
I know Zion is, we know he's a star, right? Duke basketball sensation. I think we know there's so much good basketball in him. As you said, I think people have to remember basketball is such a physical and mental game. And you want to be right. And you want to be right for your teammates because you want to be your best self out there. And now, I know guys like Charles Barkley and people will say, just be on that floor if you can, give your all. But, I think we live in a different NBA now where we really do see players protecting themselves. But, I know we look at Zion Williamson, he's played in 114 games in 4 seasons in the NBA. Do the math, lots of missed games. And then you look at this year when he was having a good year, right, averaging about 26 points and 7 rebounds a game, but limited to 29 games. I just think the question's going to be always now the what if, right? I think that's what it's going to be, with Zion, especially, when we see how fun the Pelicans were to watch last year, right, in the playoffs, and just knowing, his addition, and they did really obviously well, right, without Zion. But, his addition, it adds so much to that New Orleans team. It's supposed to be the face, I think, of that franchise. But, health is so important, in the NBA. I mean, you need to be on the court. Here in D.C., we have a similar conversation from time to time with Bradley Beal, saying how great of a player he is, but he's got to stay healthy, as a well-paid, face of the franchise here in D.C. So all that to say, I think the question does loom, what is there to do with Zion? Obviously paid well. There is potential there, but it's maximizing his potential. But, I think with Zion, I'm hoping, this offseason, I think he needs time to just get his head straight, make sure he has the best people around him, whether that be therapists, trainers, and just getting himself in the right place. Because I think there's just so much more good basketball we're going to see out of him. So all that to say, New Orleans fans, don't fret. I know you want so much more, but I wouldn't be ready to move on from Zion just yet.
All right, Kelsey, one more question from a football perspective, and I think you're in tune with all DC sports. So tell me what it's like having the best team in the XFL and what it's done to the city, because you're wrapping up the DC Defenders, just wrapped up a great regular season, going to be the 1 seed and playing playoffs next week against Seattle or St. Louis. We'll see. But how is that atmosphere? What's it done to the city? Because it seems fun down there.
Oh, my gosh. We're excited to have playoff football. Look, DC, we're in the morning right now, watching hockey, watching basketball. I think we're super excited. I think the job that Reggie Barlow has done, and, when the Defenders were undefeated for that stretch, it was good. The sports fans needed that because you have to remember the Commanders left fans heartbroken after that loss to the Cleveland Browns in the regular season and missing the postseason. You have the Bear Snake. It's great to see Audi Field, where the DC United team plays, where our Washington Spirit women's team plays now as well. It's great to see it full with football fans, our American football fans. I think it's just been fun. The Defenders have had a great run game that has helped got them there. And, I just think it's, seeing these guys believing. But I think all that to say, DC fans are excited to have playoff football. They think the Defenders can go all the way. And I think there's just something special there. I think DC fans needed that because the combination of the Defenders playing well and then the Dan Snyder style that seems like it's moving through in the right direction, football fans have a new joy here in D.C. I mean, I'm seeing smiling faces. It was a thunderstorm yesterday, and I got a text that said, it doesn't matter that the thunderstorm is happening here in D.C. because there's a rainbow over FedEx Field right now. That's how fans feel. Like, they're just happy that football seems to be going in the right direction in the city, both with the XFL team and with the Washington Commanders, who, again, will hopefully soon be having new ownership leading into this upcoming NFL season.
Kelsey, listen, before we get out of here, because I got to give you your just due, explain to the audience, because I probably could be here all day because you're so popular. You do so many different things. What's coming up this week on your agenda? Oh my gosh, it seems like so much. So if you follow me on social media, you'll see that I have 2 national TV appearances, which I'm super excited about. So tomorrow at 7:30, I will be on the Roland Martin Unfiltered show. It's on the Black Star Network, talking about Phil Jackson's recent comments, about the NBA and some of their social justice initiatives that he just wasn't getting down with. And then Wednesday, I'll be back on Brother from Another co-hosting, talking all things in NBA playoffs and NFL draft. So that's 3 to 4 Eastern time on Peacock. So definitely want folks to check that out, and be sure to check out my podcast, Listen In with K&N. I have a special football guest. I'm not revealing yet, but he's going to help me break down all things NFL draft, talk about who we see going first, and especially who we see coming here to the Washington Commanders. So hopefully make the team back competitive within the NFC. So much going on. I'm super excited about all of it. So, Tony, appreciate you allowing me to shout that out. Hope you get a chance to watch. And then I'll also be tuning into your show all this week long. Again, a fun time in the sports world. I appreciate it, Kelsey. And again, you can follow her at The Real K Nelson on Twitter. We greatly appreciate you coming on. Double segment. Not only was it early, but double segment, but I'm going to get you back on my next Friday night shift as well. I promise you that. So everybody keep it locked in right here on the Win Daily Show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.